Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 8th Dr. Thanat Korman lecture series online with the topic of Advancing Partnerships for the Sustainable Development of the ASEAN Economy by Dr. Supachai Panichapak, former Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, which is another activity for ASEAN Week organized by Dr. Thanat Korman ASEAN Studies Center. I am Assistant Professor Dr. Vipat Chuto, a lecturer from Faculty of Science, Prince of Songkhla University, as an MC today. First of all, may I call upon the President of Prince of Songkhla University, Assistant Professor Dr. Niwat Kaepadap, for a welcome speech.
Your Excellency, Dr. Supachai Panichapak, Prince of Songkhla University administrators and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Prince of Songkhla University. It is a great honor for Prince of Songkhla University to welcome Your Excellency, Dr. Supachai Panichapak, as our guest speaker today. His topic for the 8th Dr. Thanat Korman lecture is entitled Advancing Partnerships for the Sustainable Development of the ASEAN Economy. The Dr. Thanat Korman lecture series is a highlight of the PSU ASEAN Week, which is aimed of remembering and honoring Dr. Thanat Korman, the founding father of ASEAN and Prince of Songkhla University. Ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN member states possess a shared vision and commitment to create an ASEAN single market and production base, a highly dynamic and competitive region with equitable economic development that is fully integrated into the global economy. Their hope is that ASEAN will be characterized by the free movement of goods, services, and investment, as well as the freer flow of capital and skills. With harmonized trade and investment laws, ASEAN, as a rules-based organization, will be strengthened and become more attractive as an investment destination. With the market size of about $2.6 trillion and over 600 million and 20 million people, 620 million people, we estimated that ASEAN would become the fourth largest economy in the world by 2020. Unfortunately, the unexpected COVID-19 pandemic had been a great challenge for ASEAN, but its members have responded by continuing to work together to enhance the sustainable development of the ASEAN economy, which is a key theme of the 8th Dr. Thanat Korman lecture today. We are very pleased that His Excellency Dr. Supachai Panichapak is able to speak with us today about the future of the ASEAN economy, which is very interesting. So we are looking forward to meet him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the President of Prince of Songkhla University, Assistant Professor Dr. Niwat Kaepadap. Now, before the lecture, may I present a brief introduction for the speaker. Dr. Supachai Panichapak was born on the 30th of May, 1946. He got doctorate degree, Economic Planning and Development from Erasmus University, Rotterdam, the Netherlands, with the scholarship from Bank of Thailand. For his work at Bank of Thailand during 1982 to 1984, he was a director, governor office. And from 1984 to 1986, he was a director, specialized financial institution supervision and examination department. His previous positions include, in 1997, he was a deputy prime minister, as well as Ministry of Commerce. During 2002 to 2005, a Director General of World Trade Organization, WTO. And from 2005 to 2013, a Secretary General of United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD. To exemplify his academic work, we have to mention globalization and trade in the new millennium in the year 2001, and China and WTO, changing China, changing world trade in 2002, which he was a co-author. His insignia include Knight Grand Cross First Class of the Most Exalted Order of the White Elephant. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the speaker, Dr. Supachai Panichapak, former Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, on the topic of advancing partnerships for the sustainable development of the ASEAN economy.
Thank you, and good morning. Dr. Niwat Kelpradap, President of Prince of Songkhla University. Dear colleagues at the Prince of Songkhla University, students, other participants, and ladies and gentlemen. I would like to, first of all, commend the Prince of Songkhla University for the organization of this series of Dr. Thanat Khawman lecture. Dr. Thanat is a special person for not only for Thailand, our own country, but he is, of course, widely recognized and known throughout the whole region, practically probably the whole of Asia. And for us, having worked at the United Nations, also his name was quite well known at the global level, I would say. So very appropriate to, as the President, Dr. Niwat has said, to remember his outstanding contribution and his achievements during his lifetime, and to always keep his contributions in mind, because these contributions should serve as well. Although the time of the roaring 60s with all the hostilities around us have already gone past us, we should not forget the past. We should not forget our historical background, which I hope will serve us well when we have to deal with different kind of scenario from the one that Dr. Thanat had to deal with in the 1960s, but probably with the same kind of framework and underlying issues of conflicts and the fight for power that is to come in the future of Asia-Pacific region. I'm pleased also to be with our friends and colleagues at the university, Prince of Songkhla University, because I'm proud that I have been, I think in some small ways, also associated with the university. If my memory serves me right, I recall that once in my life, many years ago, I used to be appointed as a member of the board of governors of the university long ago. I could still remember it because one of my fellow board member was my party leader and former Prime Minister of Thailand, Kun Chun Lik Pai. I think we were serving at the same time, and I was very proud to be on that board, to be serving for a couple of years. A few years ago, I was also again connected with Prince of Songkhla University when the Faculty of Economics, I think it's called Faculty of Economics from the university, awarded me honorary doctorate. I think in the areas of economics and political achievements, things like that. And I was certainly quite honored and I'm very proud of it still. And I must have been to the grounds of the university for a few times to participate in certain conferences and seminars and lectures and things like that. And so again, very pleased to be back again today. Let me first say something of a personal nature with regard to Dr. Thanat Khaoman. People remember Dr. Thanat for his prominent achievements in various areas. As he used to be known as the regional peacekeeper, because he's been helping to mediate conflicts left and right in the region in those days in the 60s, when our neighboring countries very much in the throes of some really physical confrontation. And Dr. Thanat was very much instrumental in trying to keep peace. Of course, having served so long in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Thanat was known as a diplomat par excellence. His diplomatic skill, I mean, is remembered until these days, and several of my colleagues who become ambassadors around the world still fond of quoting some of his remarks and his sometimes teaching and lecturing to his former colleagues in those days. And Dr. Thanat is also known as a man of principle, for which he fought throughout his life. But personally, Dr. Thanat that I know, I appreciate him most as a man of vision and foresight. Apart from all these achievements, I would remember him and would appreciate him most as a man of foresight, particularly when it was backed up by his belief in forging regional cooperation, which was very crucial. We all remember several of the efforts in the 1950s and 1960s to set up different regional groupings like the ASA, the ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Southeast Asian countries, at that time only with Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines. And then we also had established, let's say, security-based arrangement to work together called the CETO, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. But they were short-lived and are not really making full inroads into the way we would like the global community to perceive the Southeast Asian economic integration as a serious and long-term perspective. And then in 1967 came the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And this word, you'd be surprised, I don't know, but some of you may have already known this. The term was coined actually by the former Foreign Minister Adam Malik of Indonesia, because he looked at the awkward title which was proposed at that time, which was called Southeast Asian Association of Economic Cooperation, a mouthful name for our integration effort. And so he turned it around and he called it Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So we all become ASEAN. Dr. Thanat has, of course, written profusely on ASEAN, and he has lectured many times. But one time he told a story, sort of history of the way ASEAN birth was conceived to some of the young diplomats at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And what he said was that at that time, as we all recollect, the US was, I would say, so deeply mired in the never-ending conflicts in the Indo-Chinese region, in the Indochina area. And it came to Dr. Thanat's realization that before too long, Washington may have to withdraw in disgrace from the Vietnam War. And he thought the only way that we would prevent the domino from falling for us to stand together as a collective whole. And so he made a very strong bid for the regional players who were themselves in those days also in conflicts among themselves to turn around and try to reconcile our differences so that in the absence of a major global power like the US, we could stand our own feet in the wake of the regional power vacuum. Because when the US actually took out their troops from Vietnam in those days, there was no other hegemon in the area besides maybe China. Of course, China was not ready to come in, but at least it was another big major military power in the region. So that was the reason that Dr. Thanat actually had in his mind when he actually convinced his colleagues in Southeast Asia to set up this association. It seems, and I would come back to this argument again, it seems that it was purely based on security reasons. To the outside mind, and for the first few years of success, maybe it was like that. That ASEAN was conceived as a security pact, a sort of an inheritance from the CETO time with a wider range of operations and participation. But to my mind, the real modus operandi of the association seems to be the real regional economic and social cooperation. Because at the time, we didn't only have to fill the power vacuum. We had to fight raging poverty, and the poverty level in those days, the absolute poor in the 60s is more than 50%. Now, on average, it's lower than 10% in Southeast Asia, but in those days, it was huge. It was the reasons, it was the seeds that had been sown to create the kind of inroads for communism ideology in those days. So let me reiterate. The way I appreciate Dr. Thanat Coleman's effort in convincing the whole region to come together and stand together might have been seen in a way as a purely security rationale. In my opinion, it was more than that. And I would come back and reason why do I see it in that way, and why we stand on fall not only on security reason alone, although that might have been a necessary reason. But we at that time they had the leaders had the vision of regional economic and social cooperation. Oh, in the first few decades, it might not have been realized as such, but I'll come back to that again. I have to dwell a little bit longer on my personal recollection of Dr. Thanat's, I would say, configuration in my own career. Although, of course, my career unfortunately did not actually coincide with Dr. Thanat's times at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But one time in 1999, when I was up and running as a candidate for the position of the World Trade Organization Director General position in 1999. I mean, it was a time that there was no one who actually would dare to poke his or her head into this organization coming from a third world. It was not possible, because it was a domain of the rich nations, the West, and it was their regime that tried to liberalize trade to add to their own benefits. So when I offer my candidature, it was not, I would say, very well received by not everyone, but I would say many of our colleagues from the advanced economies. And one of them, the largest hegemon at that time, and maybe now, and fading maybe, United States, they were not very pleased. And I can say it now because I can't say it when I was in the office, and I couldn't say so much when I was running for that position, because I would have been shot down quite directly. Now I can say it. They went all the way, even using the media to produce disinformation, to tarnish my my records, and to bring in all kind of fake news, what they call these days. Really, that was really purely fake news, fabricated to destroy my reputation. I wouldn't bother you, because after this I would like to go into the real content. But this involved actually Dr. Nath as a person, and wherever he is in the heaven today, somewhere, I hope that he would listen and he would hear what I say. And I think this is really, I don't know, because not many people know about it, so I would like to say this. United States use, and I would also have to cite this newspaper, which is called the International Herald Tribune. One time in 1999, International Herald Tribune printed a major article, a commentary, trying to promote the name of my dear friend, my late friend, Mr. Mike Moore from New Zealand, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. They were trying to do this in terms of a commentary, and having the theme as the headline of the theme of commentary was that the WTO needs chief with people skills. The WTO needs chief with people skills. And then they went on to say how much more Mike had more people skill, man of the street, streetwise and everything, that he can deal with people and everything. And Supachai being much less well endowed with all the skill, is very soft-hearted as an Asian. He would not be able to perform all this difficult knocking heads negotiations at the WTO in Geneva. And Herald Tribune, I would quote, they proclaim, I quote, Mike Moore of New Zealand has an instinct for politics that his rival Supachai of Thailand lacks. And then Dr. Thanath Korman saw this article, and he couldn't stand it. You remember, I have not been working with Dr. Thanath at all. We know each other by name. We had some discussion when we met each other at some receptions, things like that. But Dr. Thanath didn't know me that well, and I didn't know him that well. But up in arms, Dr. Thanath came up to write a very strong article, to criticize both the United States and also the Tribune, and to defend me. He said that this has been a cheap campaign by a hegemon using the Herald Tribune as a hireling. And to cite one sentence, very strong sentence from the letter that Dr. Thanath wrote on April 29, 1999. I still have his letter in front of me here. And he said, the hegemon is paying more his past political debt at the expense of Thailand and the World Trade Organization. For Moore has actually reversed the policy of one of his conservative predecessors, who banned American ships carrying nuclear material from using New Zealand port facilities. So this is what Dr. Thanath, what kind of material he's made of. Very strong and sturdy and very critical, argumentative, and very telling, very articulate. I will not go on very long, but again, to resume, to conclude, Dr. Thanath to the Herald Tribune actually helped to defend my candidature. But more important than that, that is why I would like this to be known to all of us. It's not only for me personally, but it's testimonial to his dislike of the way the major hegemons, major power that be, would impose things on other people, would always have their will and push people, push countries around. And Dr. Thanath has always up against all these things that I very strongly share. I very strongly share. Because the trouble that I took in taking on the challenge of running for this campaign, which nobody told me that I would be successful at all, and I believed them that was not amount to anything, but I did anyway, because I want to show and demonstrate that we can stand up to giants, and giants can be felled as well. The sense, very important sense of Dr. Thanath's positions against the hegemon, which I also subscribe to, is reflected in what I see as the centrality principle of ASEAN. And heart and soul, heart and soul, the centrality of ASEAN has to be defended at all times. ASEAN could be important for many things, for economic affairs, for socio-cultural exchange of culture, knowledge, know-how, people, all sorts of things. But the centrality of principle is more than just ASEAN being center of power of everything. It's an honest broker role. It's a role of balancing power. It's a role that we have to play so that we can keep peace in the region. It's everything. So in a sense, the centrality principle, this is what actually Dr. Sanat showed in his letter disclaiming what the hireling of the US government has been saying about me and about Mike. And I know Mike didn't like this at all. He didn't like it at all. But centrality principle of ASEAN, meaning this, firstly, for me, we should be providing counterbalance to hegemons from all sorts, inside and outside of the region. And as you know, the fight to become the next hegemons, to control the world affairs, is still raging these days. And it's between what we know two major powers in the world, United States and China. And so we are just right in between. This is coming back to haunt us in a big way. And if we can't preserve and strengthen our centrality, we'll be torn to shreds. Secondly, as I said, I mean, the second principle of centrality is that as a collective whole, collective unity, it's not just the size of our economy, it's just not the size of our number of population of more than 600 million people and things like that. It is the role that we can help to play as an honest broker and an anchor of stability in the region. And we have to play this role. We should not forgo this role for the sake of being nice and friendly to everyone, being a yes sayers and just, well, nod our heads to accept things from others. We have to stand up. Some of my friends from Latin America, they used to tell me they prefer to die standing up than just lying down. So standing up and be counted is going to count a lot in the future. Please remember this. And the third one, we don't do this because we have power. We don't do this because we have 100 submarines, or aircraft carriers, you know, or a million armed force people. We do this is my third principle. We do this because we could convene dialogues with major players around the world. And this is eventually later leaders of ASEAN has come up with a scheme to establish ASEAN Regional Forum, which has always been in search solutions for our pertinent security problems. Don't ever imagine or dream that we have already walked away from the old security issues and there will be no more security issues this day. There are still security issues just surrounding us. You look at you don't need to look at the South China Sea, but you look at the what is this, Malacca Strait, and further from Malacca Strait into the Indian Ocean, into the Hormuz Straits, close to the Middle Eastern countries, where what we call the major central regions that would be reason for countries to go into war, ranging from Central Asia to Southeast Asia. This is what some well-known historian, whose name I have forgotten at the moment, called the heartland. You know, remember the first two world wars, heartland was the Balkan. The Balkan. In the beginning of the First War, it was the hegemony from the empire of the Habsburg, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The second one was the breaking down of the breakup of the Balkans. And so that was a heartland. And the heartland for the next, I wouldn't say, well, people sometimes say a third major conflict, probably not a world war, but the third major conflict would be somewhere between the Middle East to Southeast Asia. And of course, we do not want to be involved in that. Yes, but nevertheless, I look at the past proclamations of some of our leaders, past and present. I look at the commemorative book on ASEAN journey of 50 years, 67 to 2017. Most of the leaders still, how would I say, adopt the stance of the achievement by going through the harmony and solidarity kind of ideas, the pragmatism, step-by-step approach. We have to work at solutions that are comfortable to all. We need to have low profile now, diplomatic style, and so on and so forth. This has become known as the so-called the ASEAN way. I'm going to be quite controversial today. I just finished commenting on the principle of centrality, and like heart and soul will have to be preserved. But I'm now going to be critical of another principle of the so-called the ASEAN way. Well, the ASEAN way might have been useful at a time that the narrative of challenge was just quite basic. We were looking at growth to fight poverty, but we're not doing that now. We just are not looking at growth to fight poverty now. If we have to look at growth again, we have to look at growth that can help to distribute wealth, income, access to services, public services, healthcare, education, all this sort of thing, opportunities, access. So it's not growth per se, like in the past when we were still comfortable, comfy with the way we used long-term consultation, back and forth diplomacy before we arrive at any solutions. And also sometimes we let the time heal all the wounds and then go away, or people forget about the problems. We cannot rely on our old ways of being resource intensive. You recall? We use all resources from the water, from the air, from the land, mining and everything. We excavated everything. We rarely put things back into the land. And this is one of the areas that the UN has been working at the time that I was there, that we need to convince the world that we have been actually pulling things out of the land and putting things back, it's not in the same commensurate level. Took out more. And so we are hauling out our land. And so one day the whole world will collapse. Of course, with the climate change, we will collapse before. We cannot bank ourselves, our economic development on the cheap argument of labor-intensive manufacturing anymore. No, we cannot compress the so-called labor wages just to attract foreign investment into our countries. We cannot blow up the wage shares, but we have to allow the wage shares of the labor force to expand in rhyme, in tune with the rise of labor productivity being enhanced on its turn by more education, by more technology, by more innovation, by more learning process. So I can go on and on. The need for us not only to change our mindset, we have to do that anyway. And I will come back again to sufficiency principle, the way to change the mindset of ASEAN colleagues and decision makers and leaders before it's too late. So I'm saying, what I'm saying here is that I believe the days of, the days of the the ASEAN way, probably not gone. Not gone. But we need to modify. We need to modify. You may agree, you may not disagree with me. Give it a thought. I'm saying this, and my friend, dear friend, and late colleague, my late dear friend, Dr. Surin Pitsuwan, we've been long fighting different wars together from the time we enter politics at the same time in the 1980s. And when I was in Geneva, it was Dr. Surin who came and talked to me all the time, and by phone or in person. One of the last article, Dr. Surin wrote to commemorate the 50 years of existence of ASEAN. He also criticized the ASEAN way. I try to look up the article in front of me, but I can't find back at the moment. But what he said was something that we cannot remain passive. I think the word he used was that we cannot remain passive anymore to be able to stare down the future of globalization, which is going to be deglobalized more than reglobalized. We cannot face the new conflicts of major powers by just going back into our cave and just close our eyes on this. No, we have to stand up to be counted and to play a role that we have to be able to help with a new kind of assertive diplomacy to be able to take them apart and find solutions. We are good at compromising. We can find solutions. I hope this is not too derogatory when I say that. This is not what Dr. Surin said, but I'm saying myself. This is what I call durian diplomacy. We cannot go on with this durian diplomacy to be just so nice to each other, consume durian, and then we can reconcile everything, go and play golf, and then we can reconcile everything, come back in the evening, have a dinner, and then sing songs, and then we can. No. You have to be strong. You have to build not only your economic walls, well, not really walls, your economic foundations, but also your social foundations will have to be strong as well. And all this have to be backed up by distribution. That's why we call it inclusive, sustainable. That's why the president has asked me to say something about this in this speech, the sustainable development of ASEAN economy. It has to be sustainable. This is the third major term that I would use besides centrality, the ASEAN way. Sustainability is a word that we all very readily pay lip service to. Every time we feel uncomfortable with the situation, we say, okay, this is inclusive growth, this is sustainable, in spite of the fact that we are not doing anything sustainable at all. Like what I dislike so much when we call this situation at the moment after the COVID-19 pandemic, this is a new normal. I so much disagree with the word new normal. It has been used the first time after the Great Recession, after 2007, 2008, Great Recession created by the major hegemon of the world, the United States. And after that, they called the situation, when we went back to a little bit to do our business as before, they call it the new normal. There's nothing new normal about all the situation. If we don't change, if we don't become different, it's not a new normal. It was the old abnormal that we had to change, you see. It's not a new normal. We didn't live a normal. We were abnormal in destroying all the forests, destroying the marine life, the air and everything when we produced. It was not abnormal. It was not normal. We have been living Like I said from the beginning, we dig everything from the earth and we never put things back. So it was a whole abnormality that we've been living through. So you don't want to go to new normality. It's not a new normal, it's the old abnormal that we have to get rid of. The old abnormal we have to get rid of and try to change ourselves so that the situation around us change. The air has changed. We are not going to have oxygen to breathe anymore. As you can see, the forthcoming, I think, November COP21 UN FCCC meeting in Glasgow is doomed to failure already before it started. We have already exceeded, I don't know, in the next couple of decades, 1.5 degrees centigrade overheating of the global climate. We already exceeded it. We can only try to do our best to keep it that way, not to go into 2 degrees centigrade, and even more than that. I went back and forth sometime to Switzerland, and I was shown that some of the glacier in Switzerland that 100 years ago, now it's just nearly nothing. It's no more glacier. It's just a small stream flowing down from the big mountains, and so on and so forth. But before I go back to the sense of my speech, let me. That's why I want to give this my own understanding of the word sustainable growth, sustainability, inclusiveness. It's not about greening of the economy. You think green, you do think green, and you call it green economy, and you say it's sustainable already. It's not like that. It's not that we would clean up our environment and then we have sustainability. Sustainability is about institution. It's about the marketplace. It's about the way we do macroeconomic policies. It's a whole gamut of economic philosophy that was so well recognized by His Majesty the King Rama IX. You'll be surprised to see that so many things that sufficiency economy has been talking about was to be found back in one of the first books that Adam Smith wrote before the Wealth of Nations in 1777. I think it was 5 or 6 years before the 1777 Wealth of Nations books. He wrote a book called A Theory of Moral Sentiments. And in that book, he exemplified the nature of human being, that we can live together only when we appreciate the quality of compassion. You go back and read the theory of moral sentiment: compassion, sacrifice, contribution, public-minded, lack of selfishness, everything that our King Rama IX has actually tried to convey to us, so that we are so blessed with his teachings. But I would say this: I have 4 or 5 kind of recommendation, and then I would come back to conclude what I would like to recommend to ASEAN to move along the road to more sustainability in the way we develop our economic and social system. The first one, and this is the one that the UN has been always working on, it's called the development from within. Development from within. The King Rama IX, he would call it explosion from within. This is just similar. Development from within. You are not going to actually to have to be imposed what you have to do, what you must do from others. You must have your own strong institutions. You must have the right rules of law. You must have protection for the weak, the vulnerable. You must have strong communities. So it's a basic communities undertaking that would determine the destiny of the community. So it's a nation from within that nation to determine its own destiny. It's within the nation. So this is one area in which we have to recognize that it must be from us. It's not that because Washington Consensus has been told by the World Bank that it's good, you should adopt it and swallow it. No, it's just been now discarded. Everything thrown out. Market mechanism is superb. It would regulate anything. It optimizes the allocation of resources. Nothing like that. It helps sometimes, not always. It's not a global truth. It's true sometimes. The second point I want to mention is that when you talk about inclusive growth, we have to address what I just said, address the market failures. That's why we need to have a very good law on consumer protection. And this law that we still have, which is the first law I put in place long ago when I was in the government. But this new law is a much improvement on what I did in those days. But I hope that the people who use this law, particularly the independent committee, that they be true to their principles, to be very neutral, impartial. Because in Thailand, we are so much predominated in our economic evolution by large corporate entities. We are one of the countries in Asia that actually allow the large corporate entities to operate at will. Can do no wrong. Cannot penalize them. Do things with impunity. It cannot be allowed. So inclusive growth, sustainability, meaning that you have to make markets work. Markets do not always work, but you can help market to work by using the right regime to the market, right rules of law, controlling the market, right monitoring apparatus. You have to improve the way people can facilitate access to the market. Will have to be enhanced for the smaller players, because in our case, you look at certain sectors of the market, you don't see full participation by each and everyone. Only some of the major players are in the market. I can go on. Let me stop at that. The third one is the policy space. Policy space is crucial in the parley of the United Nations. Policy space is something which is sacrosanct. What does it mean, policy space? It means that the government will have to be what we call developmental government that knows from their own kind of commitment, belief, conviction, honest conviction, where we are headed in terms of our developmental vision. And then we need policy space to exercise all this. We need strong state discipline. We need to have the mechanism to brace ourselves against external shocks. There are so many external shocks these days, and are going to be more in the future. And we need macroeconomic stability. That's why the Bank of Thailand is so important in a way that it's a guardian of the macroeconomic stability. Number 4, we need good governance. And I have lectured so many times about good governance. I just had a talk at the NIDA, but there's so many things have been said about good governance. But good governance is not just a PR exercise, I mean, just we say it because we're doing this because it's good. Good governance is something that you do it because you are committed, committed to certain areas of sustainability, like cleaning up the water in the river or something like that, or planting forests, do forestation, things like that. You do financial exercise in a most trustworthy way. You don't use financial reports to cook up things to deceive people, like what happened during the mortgage crisis in the United States in 2007, 2008. And number 5, we need knowledge economy. We need to go into the what is it, the 4.0 industrial revolution 4.0. We need to be beware of digitalization and digital divide. And knowledge economy is not about pure knowledge and everything. It's knowledge that will be able to be applied so that human well-beings could be improved. So that's everything that I have to say, because we have to understand this to be able to know where and how this partnership in ASEAN can be developed so that we would have better grip on the sustainability of our economic development. Now, we have great urgency. We have great urgencies to deal with sustainability in ASEAN because climate change is considered one of the most threatening challenges and most significant developmental challenges confronting ASEAN members in the 21st century. This is accepted by each and everyone. But unfortunately, not being brought out when we look at the joint integrated policy so much. We have seen frequency of extreme, I just cite a few things, just to remind you. Frequencies of extreme weather conditions like heat wave, heavy precipitation, floods, tropical cyclones, earthquakes, tsunamis, everything, you name it, we have it. In fact, we are in a region in which the frequency of the disastrous events have been on the increase in the last decades. I have read somewhere that in the 1970s, Asia Pacific had to confront with the average of 11 major national disaster events per country in the 1970s per year. It has now become 28 events in the 2000s, whereas in other regions, like in Africa, it's only 12, Latin America, only 16. For us, it's 28 events. We lived in an area which I was told there are not only one tectonic plates, but there are 4 of the tectonic plates shifting together and shifting all the time. We have concentration of population and intensive activities in the coastal area. So erosion all the time. And you know, some island population that I visited, they had to move their house every year. First, they lived by the water, by the sea, and then the sea has just overcome them. So they move it upward, and they shift it by 100 meters every year, up, and water follow them. This is Pacific Oceans in those areas. The cost of climate change, alarming for ASEAN, could be as high as 10% loss in GDP in 2100. Well, it seems to be long ahead of us, but 10% loss is just tremendous, much more than the pandemics and everything. And our records, I would not go into detail because I need to finish, because I have a long list of things that I would like to see ASEAN carry out. The list of achievements of ASEAN. You see, ASEAN is committed to the UN sustainable goals. You know, the UNSG, the Agenda 2030. You know, the 17 goals ranging from eradication of poverty to health, good health, clean water, gender equality, sustainable industries. I don't know, everything, renewable fuels and everything. But according to the dashboard assessment of SCAP, ASEAN has not been performing well. In one area that we perform well, it might have been in the area of the trend towards eradication of poverty. We're on the way. We reduce the incidence of absolute poverty every year. But now, with the raging, unending pandemics, we've been set back. We've gone back to square one. This is nothing achieved. So we have to start all over again. And there's so many things on the 17 goals that we have not achieved. I would not want to go in there. Inequality, we have not achieved. We all fail. I'm not saying this about Thailand. This is for all of us in ASEAN. We have failed to achieve the targets of renewable energy. We still have huge subsidies of fossil fuels. and so on and so forth. It's just a dismal record. And I can cite different reasons why ASEAN could not actually act together, and how do we end diplomacy and philosophy has not been helping us at all, because with the ASEAN way, very weak and how would I say laid back ASEAN way, we have only the so-called intergovernmental machinery, so working between ministry and ministries. Here in our country ministries together with other ministries in other countries in ASEAN. But we don't have the system which is called supranational. Supranational, which means sharing of sovereignty. We give up part of our sovereignty so that a supranational body, entity, could come in and look after the whole joint collective issues of sustainability for all of us, which is a system being used in the European Union. You see, we don't have that because we don't want to share our sovereignty. This is what our forefather has been fighting for. They said sovereignty, yes, maybe good so, but that was 50 years ago. And I would say that our ASEAN way doing diplomacy, they're not going to help us these days. I'm working now with leaders around the world on a Zoom basis. We have meetings after meetings on how to help our friends and people in Myanmar, for example, at the moment. It's a desolate situation in Myanmar, and the way that we are just jumping around the issues and trying to move to the certain summit meetings some months ago, have five conditions agreed and none of which is carried out. We have appointed one envoy. Envoy is allowed to Myanmar, talk only to the leader of the junta, but not to everyone else. So he could not have the whole picture of how we can reconcile the difference between the junta and the rest of the country. So we are there, and the whole world, as I talked in the last few meetings, since, I don't know, the beginning of the year, we had so many meetings. You know, we have searched and searched for solution. And I have been always against sanctioning and boycotting adopted by the hegemons around the world, by the major advanced economy. The boycotting and sanctioning of Myanmar would not help. It will hurt the people more, people on the street even more. I support the way that we go in, we are more assertive, we use conditions, whether they would like to do this or not. I'm not going to mention it here because it's not my business, but we have to be assertive, but meaning to help the people. At the moment, Myanmar is reporting COVID cases per day, per week, or per day in hundreds, sometimes maybe in thousands. But when they report a few hundreds infected in their prison, when the size of their prison and the size of prison in Thailand are just about equal, when we report tens of thousands cases of infection in our prison, Myanmar reports just a few hundreds. So the thing is that one of the experts on pandemics, they said, I mean, before too long, it might be nearly half of the whole population be infected. It is a very fearful scenario. And so somebody has to do something. And we are trying, and ASEAN has been seen by the whole world. Nobody else is going to be effective in dealing, in having the kind of trust with Myanmar, because they are our friends. And we want them to be thriving and coming out of the crisis. But the ASEAN way is not helping. We don't have a central bureaucracy. So many things. We don't feel that the identification of our national interests is similar to the regional interests integration. We have rules and regulations inside that are not reconciled, harmonized. We are sensitive to the services sector. We agree so commendably that we would allow at least 7 or 8 professions to have a free passage, what we call natural mobility of human resources, throughout the region of the ASEAN Economic Community. I have been asking about how many people, how many doctors, how many physicians, how many lawyers, how many consultants have been allowed in different countries, in the 10 ASEAN member countries. I don't know how many, I have heard of any. Sad. And the hierarchical order of ASEAN. You see, sustainability issues are always transboundary, what we call transboundary. The haze, the smokes, the dirty water, contaminated water, they do not flow, they do not float only in one country. It's transboundary, it all affects all of us. But if you don't have the kind of joint supranational force to come in and put up the rules, put up the penalties, put up the measures so that we can deal with all these things, you cannot going to deal with all of this. I would like to end. I have actually, no, I'm going to exceed your time, but just give me a few more minutes. I have, let's say, 3 or 4, 5 or 6 things to recommend. We put all the things, ASEAN, we meaning ASEAN. We have put everything that I said. I mean, the word resilience, UN SG, sustainable goals, the word sustainability, we put them all in the 3 pillars of ASEAN, in the pillars of security, pillars of economics, in the pillars of socio-cultural. We have region-wide agreements in so many areas in place: natural resource, biodiversity, food security, cultural heritage, coastal marine environment, water resource management, health, energy, climate, disaster, everything we have. But if you look at implementation is very, very poor, it's dismal. And I'm not saying this. You look at SCAP, the dashboard assessment, poorer than what I said. So to be honest, first of all, we have to do something about the ASEAN way. You modify it, you have a sharing of sovereignty or whatever, but we have to seem to be more assertive. You have take up stronger stance. You must have conditions for countries that are just wayward to come back into the system, into the rules of order, rules of law. You need, secondly, to coordinate all 3 pillars together, economic pillars, political pillars, social pillars. You see, because all the sustainability problems are not actually to be found only in social pillars. In our case, we tend to retain our dealings with socio-cultural problem, in this compartment. No, this all have economic rationale. Economic means will have to be put in to resolve all this issue. Political means will have to be applied so that we can bring in punity, punishment. So the 3 pillars will have to be coordinated. I don't see at the moment being coordinated. It's a business as usual. I mean, SDGs, like when I was at the UN, I was looking at the ASEAN performance with the Millennium Development Goal. I don't know whether you remember the MDGs that ended in 2020 or 2019, some time before, and then we changed into UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now the Millennium Development Goals, when I saw the way ASEAN had been handling it, it was not the way that we would like to see. We saw a combination and an effort from all sides, the 3 pillars together. Number 3, I hope, and I think this has been done before. I mean, something has been done before, but the ASEAN Secretariat, the only central bureaucracy existing in ASEAN, should not only be a note taker or messenger. in my time long ago, it was like that. No taker, messenger. But during like Dr. Surin's time, I thought Dr. Surin took it up much higher than that, to the level that he used the Secretariat to be a platform that he communicated with the rest of the world. He brought ASEAN to the world by using the Secretariat, but with Dr. Surin gone, sadly, I don't know whether, we can really upgrade that to the level that, I'm not saying this in accusation of anybody. I just say that the structural framework of ASEAN is such that this Secretariat, it needs to be boosted so much in terms of human resource, financial resources, and the authority, so that they can on themselves becoming something that can help the ASEAN member country to look into sustainability issues. Coordination with UN, well, I guess it might have been improved since the time that I was there, but I look at the way that they have so many committees in ASEAN. I remember there's committee of permanent representatives.
สงบใช่ไหมล่ะเยอะอยู่นะว่าคือแบบว่าเพราะว่าเนี่ยว่า
Okay, I'm going to finish. I think the country-based implementing agencies from the UN international agency like the ADB, World Bank, UNDP, WHO, UNICEF, they need to be fully integrated into the regional integration framework of ASEAN. Number 5, I think at the local level, community level in ASEAN, yes, I think all microphones muted. Just a few more minutes. I think we have such a deep top-down hierarchical structure. What we need is that for all the transboundary problems, we need to get the localities to be involved. It's not a national issue as such. It's in the local. It's in the region bordering with the Mekong River, for example. So it's a coastal areas in Vietnam and somewhere else, and things like that. It's an area close to volcanic ruptures in the Philippines and in Indonesia. My last point, really, very last point is that I was talking about King Rama IX sufficiency principles and the what now we in Thailand call the King's principles. I think King principles actually answer to all the basic requirements for sustainability that I talked about. First, you have to know what you are doing, be mindful, don't have to be told by others. You have to have honesty, integrity, and perseverance. You have to avoid extreme actions. You have to be sensitive and insightful. You have to do research analysis, and you have to protection against shocks. The things about resilience that every one of us in the world today is talking about, how to build resilience after the COVID-19 crisis. So this is all, sorry, I hope I have made full use of my time and gone from the beginning, my own personal involvement with Dr. Sanat Korman University, and also my experiences with the way sustainability is perceived in the UN and the way that I would like to be projected into the ASEAN integration framework. The weaknesses, shortcomings that I think leadership in ASEAN might realize, but they would probably need time to do that, but I hope that they do it as soon as possible before it's too late. And lastly, in trying to adopt some of the structural changes in ASEAN that would help to, you see, in writing the word inclusiveness and sustainability into our agreement is okay, but implementation is a serious and pragmatic thing that has to be honestly carried out fully. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you very much. Our special speaker today, Dr. Supachai Panichpath, former Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, for the initiatives, guidelines, and creative ideas from the lecture on the topic of advancing partnerships for the sustainable development of the ASEAN economy. Now, everyone is welcome for question and answer session, okay, Q&A session for about 10 minutes. So please do not hesitate to turn on your microphone now to ask the question that you may have. Please proceed. Question and answer from the floor, please.
สวัสดีครับ Thank you, Dr. Supachai, for this wonderful talk. You have a lot of insights, and thank you so much. So my question, actually, my opinion first, I actually agree that if ASEAN want to proceed and be better than today, we need like a strong supranational body. But normally, ASEAN countries, we have very different level of economic development. So, for example, Singapore has GDP per capita actually around 9 times of Thailand. Actually, Thailand, has a GDP per capita around 4 times of Cambodia. And we have very different political political systems are very different across countries. So my question is, what is the incentives or common factors that you think that would make the starting of building supranational body or the new ASEAN ways, as you say, is possible? Thank you.
Let me say this. When Europe, when it was European Union before European Community and everything, when Europe was conceived as a united whole, countries were disparate, like you said, in their political background, systems and economic status and everything. They all differ. But what brought them together was a single goal, that they have to combine their strength, not only to prevent another world war, because the 2 world wars were created in Europe, not to prevent only the 3rd World War, but to be able to measure up to the major economic power outside of the country, outside of the region of Europe. Because Europe could not compete by being just Belgium, a small Netherlands. Well, France, UK may be able to do, but together they could mobilize that strength together. You look at the way a joint undertaking like Airbus could have been created in Europe. It would have not been possible without the kind of European Union that was started from, I don't know, in the 60s as well. So it's a single commitment which we have long ago in ASEAN. If we have the kind of centrality and to have the regional integration that should aim at sustainable integration as possible, sustainable integration. And like I said, I mean, the role of sustainability is not only greening of the economy, it's not only rules of law, it's not only macroeconomic, it's everything together. It's honest broker, it's us playing the role of the political power. But that political power will have to be played up when we are well combined. You look at the moment, at the way, well, you were saying that we have GDP per capita several times of Cambodia. You look at the strength of Cambodia a few years ago when they actually, rock the ASEAN boat. When the first time the ASEAN meeting didn't end up having an agreed statement. Because I think Cambodia or somebody else didn't agree with the agreed statement, so there was no statement. And Cambodia alone, which is actually taking up a lot of contacts with, for example, with China, they are very open about it. But they can carry weight in the region, even if they're just a small economy. They carry weight. Laos PDR, small country, yes, much poorer than Thailand, but they carry heavy energy weight. They are the so-called battery, not only of Southeast Asia, but it's going to be the battery of Asia. The power for them to produce power for the whole region is just incredible. So they have, we have our own niches, yes, but we have our single collective united goal, not only in keeping peace in the region, which we've done so well, but not so well at the moment, but we need to do this in the future as well, because there'll probably be less of a peace, degree of peace in the future. So this may have to be strengthened, but have to be strengthened because we are coherent, we are well united, not only our economic linkages, which we are at the moment. We are very well linked. You look at the supply chain throughout the whole globe is very much in great shape in Asia, and particularly in Southeast Asia. We're doing that. So what we need to do is to actually extend from that, to create a chains of power linking. Before too long, for example, we would link power supply together, and power supply to be provided by renewable resources from solar, from water and everything. So we can have a lot of power together when we are collectively united. And supranational could be difficult in the first few years. I know European Union took a lot of time, I don't know, longer than us, to be able to come to these days. And today you see in Europe, you have a former communist nations joining hand with capitalist countries in European Union. It could be done. So don't give up, and look at it and gradually build on it. And we don't have to do it right away for everything together. We can start by doing, for example, on the river, about marine environment. We have big tributaries, network tributaries coming throughout the whole region, particularly the on-land ASEAN, Siam with Thailand, and so and this could be a start. We can do it with the energy supply. Before we would say, okay, for the difficult thing would be macroeconomic discipline. But that the UN, we have already thought about that long ago. We thought, well, the way that you can look together at the macroeconomic joint stability is to look at a code of conduct for the management of exchange rates, for example. Start from exchange rates. I used to try in my very old days, very young days when I was at the central bank, to try to link up ASEAN money markets together by having the so-called ASEAN banker acceptance. ASEAN banker acceptance. When we trade and we have to discount acceptance among traders, you know where we have to do it? ASEAN, among ASEAN, we have to discount acceptance papers in New York. It's maybe between ringgit and baht, but it's settled in United States dollar in New York. So together with the backup of that time, Dr. Mahathir, we try. I tried for years when I was at the central bank so many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, to link up like this, to create more power for us and reduce the costs doing business. It was successful. It wasn't successful, mainly because of a very small issue which has been resolved today because of the differences in the payments position of different countries. Some countries have deficit payment current accounts, and some have surplus. And so they said, well, central bank would have hard time managing that. These days, there's no more problem. But in those days, it was the one that blocked the ASEAN bank, which is so sad because it could have reduced the source of cost for our traders, exporters and importers. If all this acceptance with finance trade could be discounted in the ASEAN money market. Just some examples.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. I think we are running out of time because it's 10 minutes already. So all of you, everyone is encouraged to, research a lot more, for the creative ideas or, or like some kind of something that have in your mind, okay, for doing something for our country and then ASEAN, okay? So we have to research a lot more and then help put things in practice, okay, as guided by the speaker. So last but not least, now I would like to, convey everyone to the closing session of this lecture. So please welcome the President of Prince of Songkla University once again, Assistant Professor Dr. Niwat Gabradap, for the closing speech.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for a very inspiring, thought-provoking, and informative lecture. It's clearly that by working together, we can look forward to even greater opportunities in the region, especially concerning the mobility of people due to the improved economy. Of course, ASEAN cares for its people. We are moving forward together and getting stronger towards sustainability. So please join me to thank our guest speaker, His Excellency Dr. Supachai Panichpak. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากครับ
ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you, Assistant Professor Dr. Niwat Gabradap, PSU President. And that concludes the 8th Dr. Thanat Khoman lecture series online with the topic of advancing partnerships for the sustainable development of the ASEAN economy by Dr. Supachai Panichpak, former Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, with special thanks from PSU, and then Dr. Thanat Khoman, ASEAN Studies Center. And then thank you all. We hope you can get some creative ideas and visions to be applied, okay, foresights to be applied in your work and in operation. Okay, so please follow the special lecture from Dr. Thanat Khoman, ASEAN Studies Center next year. I have to say that we are immensely grateful to our special speaker today. So please give a big hand once again for the speaker. Thank you very much. So everyone, thank you very much for today. And then we hope good things, from all of us, okay? Yeah, for our country and then also ASEAN and the world. Thank you and goodbye. สวัสดีครับ
ครับขอบคุณมากครับท่านดร.วิวัฒน์จุดโตแล้วก็ทีม
When we have just finished, we have just finished the 8th Dr. Thanat Khoman lecture series online with the topic of advancing partnerships for the sustainable development of the ASEAN economy by Dr. Supachai Panichpak, former Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, with special thanks from PSU and then also all of us, and especially the organizer, Dr. Thanat Khawman ASEAN Studies Center. Now, everyone please remain following our channel to meet our next beautiful MC, Miss Nenapa Suthivipakorn or Kun Choi, with special presentation from our collaboration. Okay, Kun Nenapa, over to you. สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ สวัสดีทุกคนเลยนะคะ ขอบพระคุณอาจารย์เต่าค่ะ ผู้ช่วยศาสตราจารย์ดร.พิพัฒน์ชูโตนะคะ ในช่วงเช้าที่ผ่านมาค่ะ ก็ได้รับฟังไปเรียบร้อยแล้วนะคะสำหรับปาฐกถาพิเศษที่เกิดขึ้นในวันนี้ค่ะ โดยท่านสุประชัยพานิชพักค่ะ ดิฉันเนตรภาสุทธิวิภากรนะคะ ก็จะรับช่วงต่อในช่วงที่2ตอนนี้ค่ะ Thank you Assistant Professor Pipat Chuto. The morning session has finished the first part, which was a special live talk by former WTO Director General Dr. Supachai Panichpak. I'm Nenapa Suthivipakorn. I'm here with you in the second half. เอาละค่ะท่านผู้ชมทุกท่านคะต้องบอกว่าประเทศไทยของเรานะคะเป็นหนึ่งในอาเซียนแล้วเราเนี่ยก็เป็นที่รักแล้วก็เรียกได้ว่าเข้ากับทุกคนที่เป็นเพื่อนบ้านของเราได้ดีมากๆเลยค่ะโดยเฉพาะ2ประเทศที่อยู่ใกล้กับเรามากๆนั่นก็คือประเทศมาเลเซียแล้วก็อินโดนีเซียนั่นเองนะคะ As you know that Thailand is one in ASEAN and we get along pretty well to all our neighbors. But the two countries that we have a very special and close relationship with are Malaysia and Indonesia. เอาละค่ะท่านผู้ชมคะถึงแม้ว่าปีนี้นะคะจะไม่เหมือนเดิมเพราะปกติแล้วเนี่ยเราจะได้เจอกันนะคะหลายประเทศก็จะมาอยู่ที่นี่ด้วยกันค่ะแต่ไม่เป็นไรเราจะไปอย่าง New Normal แล้วกันนะคะและที่สำคัญวันนี้เพื่อนบ้าน2ประเทศที่ดิฉันได้กล่าวถึงไปนั้นนะคะก็มีวิดีโอนะคะที่จะทำให้ทุกท่านได้รู้จักกับพวกเขามากขึ้นประเทศมาเลเซียนะคะวันนี้เรามีวิดีโอคลิปที่ชื่อว่า Malaysia Truely Asia ค่ะจากกงสุลมาเลนะคะและก็อีก1คลิปค่ะ Wonderful Indonesia 2021 นะคะจากกงสุลของอินโดนีเซียนั่นเองค่ะEven though this year we cannot meet up as normal, never mind, so we go on new normal way instead. And now our great neighbors, as I mentioned earlier, would like you to get to know them more with 2 videos, which are Malaysia Truly Asia from the Consulate General of Malaysia and Wonderful Indonesia 2021 from the Consulate Republic of Indonesia. Please enjoy. เชิญชมค่ะ
race, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
A mesmerizing getaway. A holy sanctuary. A captivating culture. Sublimely sacred. Yet also excitingly profane. The ultimate paradise. A luxurious escapade. Here you have some of the hippest spots on the planet. Release your inhibitions for an adventure of a lifetime. Whether you fancy the beach or golf, just love food served exotically. Or adrenaline rushes. Enjoy oases of tranquility. Where pampering is art perfected. Mysteriously festive. Tourism with its own history. Branded hospitality. The ultimate travel destination and more. Bali. Wonderful.
Indonesia.
West Sumatra. Famous for its ancient history echoing through its canyons. Wonderful contours formed by the tectonic slabs, with fertile volcanic land crossed by the grandeur of Bukit Barisan. Ageless natural beauty is felt every step we walk and every sight we see, leaving behind countless tales of myths, hard to be neglected. Catch the beauty of Lake Maninjau. Wonderful landscape is witnessed when we fly over the top of Lawang Hill. Priceless high elevated adventure. Pedaling together around Singkarak Lake. Experience the phenomenon of walking on the living bridge, while the waterfall refreshes the travelers. Evolving with time, without letting go of the inscribed history. Villagers keeping their joyous traditions. Bachujawi, which means cow race. The elegance of martial art, Silat. Visiting the Pagadian Palace. Acknowledge the culture history of Minangkabau. The enchanting plate dance will greet guests, exposing their striking physical and vulnerability. Taste the various traditional culinary of West Sumatra. Padang main dishes uniquely served to your table, well known for their savory and spicy flavors. While cakes and beverages are exceptional. The spicy balado cassava chips. And of course, the legendary delicious satay padang. Delight in the beauty of silver crafts in an elegant ivory nuance. Try on the rich, colorful sun-kit fabrics.
เห็นวิดีโอแล้วนะคะแหมถึงการเที่ยวคือเลยทีเดียวค่ะสวยงามมากเลยทีเดียวนะคะเอาละค่ะในช่วงนี้นะคะเราได้รับเกียรติค่ะจากศิลปินนะคะประเทศอาเซียน8ประเทศด้วยกันค่ะนั่นก็คือประเทศอินโดนีเซียนะคะลาวมาเลเซียเมียนมาฟิลิปปินส์สิงคโปร์เวียดนามและก็ไทยค่ะจำนวนศิลปินทั้งหมดนะคะ26ท่านค่ะกับผลงานศิลปกรรมร่วมจัดแสดงนิทรรศการในครั้งนี้52ชิ้นด้วยกันซึ่งจะจัดแสดงโดยสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนามหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์ค่ะ Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to invite you to have a fabulous time with us. We have honored to welcome the 26 artists from 8 countries with 52 masterpieces. The 8 countries are Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, and Thai. Let the art in you shining out with the art exhibition in the theme of Happiness in ASEAN Through Art by Prince Kalyaniwattana Institute of Cultural Studies. Enjoy the show. เชิญรับชมค่ะ
สวัสดีครับท่านผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านที่กำลังรับชมออนไลน์อยู่ในขณะนี้ผมในนามของ มหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์รู้สึกยินดีเป็นอย่างยิ่งครับที่ได้ต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่นิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียนออนไลน์ Happiness in ASEAN Through Art ซึ่งจัดโดยสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาในครั้งนี้ซึ่งเป็นการจัดนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียนซึ่งเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของกิจกรรมในงานสัปดาห์อาเซียนที่ได้ดำเนินการต่อเนื่องมาเป็นปีที่ 2 แล้วถือว่ากิจกรรมนี้เป็นไฮไลท์ของงานสัปดาห์อาเซียนที่ช่วยสร้างบรรยากาศสีสันและสุนทรียภาพในมิติทางศิลปะวัฒนธรรมให้กับกิจกรรมสัปดาห์อาเซียนของมหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์เป็นอย่างยิ่งสืบเนื่องจากสถานการณ์แพร่ระบาดของโรคติดเชื้อไวรัสโคโรนา 2019 หรือโควิด -19 ที่เรารู้จักกันดีนะครับทำให้มหาวิทยาลัยจะต้องปรับรูปแบบในการทำงานในลักษณะของ New Normal ซึ่งพวกเราเริ่มจะคุ้นเคยกันดังนั้นการจัดนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียนในรูปแบบออนไลน์ครั้งนี้จึงเป็นเหมือนโอกาสในวิกฤตที่ทำให้หน่วยงานได้พัฒนารูปแบบการดำเนินงานของตนเองเข้าสู่ยุคดิจิทัลมากขึ้นและขยายเป็นวงกว้างได้ทั่วทั้งอาเซียนและเป็นโอกาสอันดีของนักเรียนนักศึกษาบุคลากรศิลปินและผู้รักในงานศิลปะทุกท่านที่จะได้รับชมนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมออนไลน์ซึ่งนอกจากจะได้รับสุนทรียภาพในรูปแบบใหม่แล้วก็ยังมีความปลอดภัยและสามารถรับชมได้จากทุกคนทุกแห่งทั่วโลกถือเป็นพื้นที่ใหม่ที่เราสามารถที่จะทำปฏิสัมพันธ์เชื่อมโยงหรือแลกเปลี่ยนเรียนรู้ร่วมกันได้อย่างสะดวกรวดเร็วและไม่มีค่าใช้จ่ายนะครับถือว่าเป็นการทำงานแบบไร้พรมแดนอย่างแท้จริงในส่วนของศิลปะนั้นเป็นงานที่ทราบกันดีอยู่แล้วว่าสามารถช่วยจันโลงจิตใจน้อมนำไปสู่ความเข้าใจในธรรมชาติความเป็นมนุษย์และเข้าสู่สัจธรรมอันสูงสุดได้ทั้งยังเสมือนเป็นสื่อกลางที่ช่วยให้เราสามารถสื่อสารเข้าใจกันได้โดยปราศจากข้อจำกัดทางด้านภาษาผลงานศิลปกรรมที่ท่านศิลปินจากประเทศต่างๆในประชาคมอาเซียนได้ร่วมกันจัดส่งมาแสดงในนิทรรศการครั้งนี้ล้วนเป็นผลงานศิลปะร่วมสมัยที่ทรงคุณค่าและมีความเป็นอัตลักษณ์โดยเฉพาะตัวของศิลปินแต่ละท่านที่ผ่านการสั่งสมประสบการณ์และฝึกฝนเทคนิคการสร้างสรรค์จนสามารถถ่ายทอดออกมาสู่ผลงานที่สะท้อนให้เห็นถึงวิถีชีวิตศิลปะวัฒนธรรมค่านิยมความคิดความเชื่อซึ่งช่วยให้ผู้ชมสามารถเรียนรู้ความเป็นตัวตนอัตลักษณ์ของแต่ละชาติในอาเซียนผ่านผลงานศิลปะช่วยเสริมสร้างความเข้าใจในวัฒนธรรมซึ่งเป็นสิ่งสำคัญและเป็นจุดร่วมของเราในภูมิภาคอาเซียนและช่วยสร้างแรงบันดาลใจในการสรรสร้างผลงานทางศิลปะต่อไปโดยเฉพาะยิ่งในสถานการณ์โควิดเช่นนี้การที่เราได้เข้ามามีส่วนร่วมในการที่จะศึกษาศิลปะนั้นจะช่วยในการบำบัดจิตใจช่วยให้ผ่อนคลายลดความตึงเครียดช่วยสร้างกำลังใจความหวังให้เรามีพลังในการเดินหน้าต่อไปเพื่อผ่านพ้นวิกฤตโควิด -19 ร่วมกันผมเชื่อว่าด้วยความร่วมมือและความสามัคคีของพวกเราทุกคนจะสร้างพลังที่แข็งแกร่งมุ่งสู่อนาคตอย่างมีความหมายต่อไปในโอกาสนี้ผมขอแสดงความชื่นชมและขอขอบคุณศิลปินทุกท่านในประชาคมอาเซียนที่ได้ร่วมกันส่งภาพผลงานสร้างสรรค์อันทรงคุณค่าของท่านมาจัดนิทรรศการออนไลน์ภายใต้การประสานงานของมหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์ในครั้งนี้ขอขอบคุณเจ้าหน้าที่ของสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาคณะกรรมการจัดงานและผู้เกี่ยวข้องและผู้ให้การสนับสนุนทุกฝ่ายที่ได้ร่วมกันจัดนิทรรศการออนไลน์ครั้งนี้ ได้อย่างดียิ่งและที่สำคัญต้องขอขอบคุณท่านผู้ชมทุกท่านที่กำลังรับชมออนไลน์อยู่ในขณะนี้ที่ให้ความสำคัญให้ความสนใจกับนิทรรศการในครั้งนี้ไม่ว่าท่านจะอยู่ในประเทศไทยประเทศในอาเซียนหรือในภูมิภาคอื่นๆของโลกผมเชื่อว่าทุกท่านที่ได้ชมนิทรรศการจะได้รับแรงบันดาลใจได้รับความสุขสุนทรียะผ่านงานศิลปะที่ท่านศิลปินได้บรรจงถ่ายทอดออกมาและคงทำให้ท่านได้มีความหวังเกิดกำลังใจและมีความเข้มแข็งในการฝ่าวิกฤตสถานการณ์แพร่ระบาดโควิดครั้งนี้ไปด้วยกันโดยที่ไม่ได้ลืมในการที่จะแสวงหาความสุขในการใช้ชีวิตภายใต้ภาวะวิกฤตในครั้งนี้ซึ่งจะสมกับชื่อของนิทรรศการที่เราตั้งไว้ว่าความสุขผ่านงานศิลปะหรือ Happiness in ASEAN Through Art ในครั้งนี้ขอได้รับความขอบคุณจากมหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์อีกครั้งหนึ่งครับขอบคุณมากครับ
เรียนท่านผู้บริหารมหาวิทยาลัยศิลปินและท่านผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านที่กำลังรับชมออนไลน์อยู่ในขณะนี้สถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนามีความยินดีที่ได้ร่วมเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของกิจกรรมสัปดาห์อาเซียนครั้งที่ 8 ประจำปี 2564 ภายใต้หัวข้อ Advancing Partnership for the Sustainable Development of ASEAN Economy ซึ่งสถาบันได้ดำเนินการร่วมกันกับศูนย์อาเซียนศึกษาดร.ถนัดคอมันมหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์และหน่วยงานเครือข่ายจัดกิจกรรมร่วมกันมาอย่างต่อเนื่องยาวนานเพื่อสร้างความตระหนักรู้เกี่ยวกับประชาคมอาเซียนและสร้างบรรยากาศพหุวัฒนธรรมความเป็นนานาชาติระหว่างประเทศสมาชิกอาเซียนให้แก่นักศึกษาบุคลากรและผู้สนใจทั่วไปซึ่งในปีนี้เนื่องจากสถานการณ์แพร่ระบาดของโรคติดเชื้อไวรัสโคโรนา 2019 หรือโควิด -19 ทางสถาบันจึงได้กำหนดจัดกิจกรรมนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียนในหัวข้อ Happiness in ASEAN Through Art ในรูปแบบของนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมออนไลน์โดยได้รับเกียรติจากศิลปินจากประเทศอาเซียนประมาณ 30 ท่านจาก 8 ประเทศได้แก่อินโดนีเซียเมียนมาลาวมาเลเซียฟิลิปปินส์สิงคโปร์ไทยและเวียดนามซึ่งผลงานร่วมกันจัดแสดงนิทรรศการมากกว่า 60 ชิ้นเผยแพร่ผ่านทางเว็บไซต์สถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาในระหว่างวันที่ 1 ตุลาถึงวันที่ 30 พฤศจิกายนนะคะ 2564 นี้และถ่ายทอดสดผ่านทางช่องทางสื่อออนไลน์ของมหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์ PSU Connect เนื่องในกิจกรรมสัปดาห์อาเซียนครั้งที่ 8 ประจำปี 2564 ในวันที่ 5 ตุลาคม 2564 นี้ค่ะดิฉันขอบคุณศิลปินทุกท่านที่ได้ร่วมกันส่งผลงานของท่านมาร่วมจัดแสดงนิทรรศการออนไลน์ในครั้งนี้ขอบคุณเครือข่ายคณะทำงานและคณะกรรมการทุกท่านที่ร่วมกันมุ่งมั่นทำงานจนนิทรรศการครั้งนี้สำเร็จลงด้วยดีและสำคัญที่สุดคือขอบคุณผู้ชมทุกท่านที่ร่วมกันสนับสนุนการดำเนินงานทางด้านศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมมาโดยตลอดขอให้ทุกท่านมีความสุขจากการรับชมงานศิลป์ในนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียนออนไลน์ Happiness in ASEAN Through Art ครั้งนี้ขอบคุณค่ะ
เพื่อส่งเสริมให้ศิลปะมีบทบาทในการเสริมสร้างความรู้ความเข้าใจความคิดสร้างสรรค์ความตระหนักในคุณค่าของศิลปะวัฒนธรรมและเปิดโลกทัศน์สู่การอยู่ร่วมกันด้วยความเข้าใจในสังคมพหุวัฒนธรรมตลอดจนบ่มเพาะสุนทรียะให้เกิดขึ้นในวิถีชีวิตและวิธีคิดแก่อนุชนและสังคมโดยรวมโครงการจัดตั้งศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมจึงได้เริ่มจัดแสดงนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมเป็นครั้งแรกในปีพ.ศ. 2545 โดยจัดแสดงณหอศิลป์สยามตั้งอยู่บนถนนปุณกันตำบลคอหงส์อำเภอหัดใหญ่จังหวัดสงขลาโดยได้รับความร่วมมือเป็นอย่างดียิ่งจากภาคีเครือข่ายต่างๆในปีพ.ศ. 2552 โครงการจัดตั้งศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมได้รับการเอื้อเฟื้อสถานที่จากบริษัทสีตรังแอโกรอินดัสทรีจำกัดมหาชนในการก่อตั้งพิพิธภัณฑ์บ้านหัตถกรรมและศิลปกรรม Craft House Museum and Art Gallery ณอาคารเลขที่ 34/15-16 หมู่ 4 ถนนคลองเรียน 2 อำเภอหัดใหญ่จังหวัดสงขลาโดยมีวัตถุประสงค์เพื่อสร้างแหล่งเรียนรู้ด้านศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมให้แก่ชุมชนและเพื่อเป็นพื้นที่เผยแพร่ผลงานสร้างสรรค์ของเยาวชนนักเรียนนักศึกษาและศิลปินผ่านการจัดนิทรรศการศิลปะหมุนเวียนรวมถึงส่งเสริมงานหัตถกรรมของท้องถิ่นภาคใต้ผ่านการจำหน่ายและจัดแสดงนิทรรศการผ้าทอพื้นบ้านภาคใต้ต่อมาโครงการจัดตั้งศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมได้เปลี่ยนสภาพจากโครงการจัดตั้งเป็นศูนย์และได้รับมติให้ปรับปรุงพื้นที่อาคารหอสมุดคุณหญิงหลงอัฏฐกวีสุนทรเดิมก่อสร้างเป็นอาคารศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมจึงได้ย้ายสถานที่ในการจัดโครงการนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมมายังอาคารหลังใหม่และจัดตั้งเป็น PSU Art Gallery ซึ่งตั้งอยู่ที่บริเวณชั้น 2 อาคารศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมมหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์วิทยาเขตหัดใหญ่โดยได้เปิดทำการและจัดแสดงนิทรรศการเป็นครั้งแรกเมื่อวันที่ 4 เมษายน พ.ศ. 2558 ในนิทรรศการที่ชื่อนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมนานาชาติเพื่อเฉลิมพระเกียรติสมเด็จพระเทพรัตนราชสุดาสยามบรมราชกุมารีในโอกาสทรงเจริญพระชนมายุ 5 รอบโดยได้รับเกียรติจากท่านชวนหลีกภัยที่ปรึกษาสภามหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์เป็นประธานในพิธีเปิดเมื่อวันที่ 13 ธันวาคม พ.ศ. 2562 มหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์ได้หลอมรวมหน่วยงานหลักด้านศิลปะวัฒนธรรมของมหาวิทยาลัย 2 หน่วยงานคือสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาวิทยาเขตปัตตานีและศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมวิทยาเขตหัดใหญ่เพื่อบูรณาการการขับเคลื่อนงานด้านศิลปะวัฒนธรรมร่วมกันโดยใช้ชื่อสถาบันที่สมเด็จพระเจ้าพี่นางเธอเจ้าฟ้ากัลยาณิวัฒนากรมหลวงนราธิวาสราชนครินทร์ได้พระราชทานนามว่าสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาโดยยกระดับหน่วยงานเป็นส่วนงานวิชาการกลางมีภาระหน้าที่ในการวิจัยและโดยมีสำนักงานบริหารหลักใน 2 วิทยาเขตได้แก่อาคารหอศิลปะวัฒนธรรมวิทยาเขตปัตตานีและอาคารศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมวิทยาเขตหัดใหญ่ปัจจุบัน PSU Art Gallery สถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนามหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์ยังคงมุ่งมั่นในการดำเนินงานเพื่อเป็นแหล่งเรียนรู้และพื้นที่เผยแพร่ผลงานด้านศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมผ่านการจัดโครงการอบรมและจัดแสดงนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมที่มีการหมุนเวียนเรื่องราวและเนื้อหาการเรียนรู้เกี่ยวกับศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมด้านต่างๆภายใต้การมีส่วนร่วมของเครือข่ายชุมชนท้องถิ่นสถาบันการศึกษาองค์กรภาครัฐเอกชนและต่างประเทศเพื่อสร้างโอกาสในการสัมผัสและซึมซับถึงคุณค่าและความงามของงานศิลปะส่งเสริมและสร้างแรงบันดาลใจด้านศิลปะให้แก่ชุมชนตลอดจนส่งเสริมการขับเคลื่อนงานด้านศิลปกรรมร่วมสมัยของวงการศิลปกรรมในภาคใต้ต่อไปการจัดกิจกรรมด้านอาเซียนสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาได้ดำเนินการเพื่อส่งเสริมความเข้าใจในประเทศอาเซียนผ่านมุมมองของงานศิลป์ส่งเสริมการเรียนรู้สุนทรียภาพและสร้างแรงบันดาลใจทางศิลปะตลอดจนสนับสนุนการเผยแพร่ผลงานและขับเคลื่อนการดำเนินงานของเครือข่ายศิลปินระหว่างประเทศอาเซียนมาอย่างต่อเนื่องผ่านการดำเนินงานของแหล่งเรียนรู้ด้านศิลปกรรมทั้ง 2 วิทยาเขตคือหอศิลป์ภาคใต้มหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์วิทยาเขตปัตตานีและพิพิธภัณฑ์บ้านหัตถกรรมและศิลปกรรมจนเปลี่ยนมาเป็น PSU Art Gallery ณ มหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์วิทยาเขตหัดใหญ่ในปัจจุบัน เช่นในปีพ.ศ. 2558 มีการจัดกิจกรรม PSU International Art Workshop 2016 ปฏิบัติการทางทัศนศิลป์และนิทรรศการนานาชาติณสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนามหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์วิทยาเขตปัตตานีเมื่อวันที่ 29 มกราคมถึง 1 กุมภาพันธ์ 2559 มีศิลปินจากประเทศอาเซียนและประเทศอื่นๆรวม 13 ประเทศจำนวน 120 คนร่วมสร้างผลงานศิลปกรรมกว่า 130 ชิ้นและนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียนและนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมนานาชาติต่างๆของ PSU Art Gallery สถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนามหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์วิทยาเขตหัดใหญ่เช่นนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมนานาชาตินิทรรศการศิลปะเด็กนานาชาตินิทรรศการกลุ่มศิลปินหญิงไทยมาเลเซียและในปีพ.ศ. 2563 สถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาร่วมเป็นเจ้าภาพจัดงานสัปดาห์อาเซียนครั้งที่ 7 ประจำปี 2563 The 7 ASEAN Week เมื่อวันที่ 26-27 กันยายน 2563 ณ มหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์วิทยาเขตหัดใหญ่โดยจัดแสดงนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียน ASEAN Art Exhibition 2020 เมื่อวันที่ 14 กันยายน ถึง 30 ตุลาคม พ.ศ. 2563 ณ PSU Art Gallery อาคารศูนย์ส่งเสริมศิลปะและวัฒนธรรมและในปี 2564 นี้เชิญพบกับนิทรรศการศิลปกรรมอาเซียนออนไลน์ Happiness in ASEAN Through Art โดยจัดแสดงผลงานศิลปกรรมในรูปแบบของนิทรรศการออนไลน์ที่มีการรวบรวมภาพผลงานศิลปกรรมร่วมสมัยเทคนิคต่างๆของศิลปินที่มีชื่อเสียงและผลงานโดดเด่นจากประเทศอาเซียนกว่า 30 ท่านเผยแพร่ผ่านทางเว็บไซต์ของสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาในช่วงระหว่างวันที่ 1 ตุลาคมถึง 30 พฤศจิกายน 2564
My works tells about the world of imagination, about many things in everyday life of dreams. I love the world of children and the way children play because I think we all have been children and we can control a lot of things from and harness and through understanding of the world of children.
what is it good?
Lao artist. Here is my working room. I would like to show you. Let's see together.
เรากำลังออกแบบเกี่ยวกับพยาธิโควิด -19 โรคระบาดในปัจจุบันนี้ที่ทั่วโลกได้เผชิญกับวิกฤตการณ์โควิด -19 ดังนั้นข้าพเจ้าจะมีแรงบันดาลใจที่มาสร้างสรรค์ผลงานเป็นกำลังขั้นตอนการออกแบบที่มันแต้มการสเก็ตขาวดำหลังจากนั้นจะมาใส่สินให้สี
「
I'm Susanna from Singapore. I'm so happy I can join this exhibition with you. So now I have to start my work. Let's begin.
ค่ะก็จบลงไปแล้วนะคะสำหรับนะคะนิทรรศการศิลปะออนไลน์ของเราในวันนี้ค่ะโดยสถาบันวัฒนธรรมศึกษากัลยาณิวัฒนาของมหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์นั่นเองค่ะนิทรรศการที่เผยแพร่ไปนะคะก็จะยังคงอยู่ในเว็บไซต์นะคะซึ่งท่านสามารถที่จะเข้าไปรับชมได้ค่ะทาง culture.psu.ac.th นะคะในช่วงระหว่างวันที่ 1 ตุลาคมจนถึง 30 พฤศจิกายน 2564 ค่ะFor the exhibition you have just watched, we also put on the website culture.psu.ac.th from 1st of October until 30th November 2021. ช่วงนี้ค่ะเราเข้าสู่ช่วงสุดท้ายกันนะคะโลกยังคงหมุนไปข้างหน้าค่ะการดำเนินชีวิตของเรานั้นนะคะก็ยังคงต้องดำเนินต่อไปเช่นเดียวกันค่ะความสัมพันธ์ที่ดีงามนะคะได้ถือกำเนิดเกิดขึ้นมาใช้เวลาแรมปีค่ะและก็จะไม่มีวันสิ้นสุดนะคะเพราะเราเชื่อว่าอาเซียนคือบ้านของพวกเราทุกคนค่ะต้องขอบพระคุณทุกการรับชมนะคะรักษาสุขภาพทุกท่านเลยค่ะ and that's all for the 8th ASEAN Week Advancing Partnership for the sustainable development of the ASEAN economy. World is moving, life needs to be continued. The great relationship has been started for years and it will be never ever stop because ASEAN is our home. Thank you for watching. Dr. Pipat and me, Nenapa. Hope you have a very wonderful day. Stay safe everyone. ขอบพระคุณและสวัสดีค่ะ